Hi, I'm Jeffrey Dillinger. I am the co-CEO here at Megalis in Tokyo, Japan. Our main studio is here in Tokyo, Japan. We do have a small office in the south of France where my business partner Christophe Rodo is actually from. We're over 70 people here in the Tokyo office, and we do both animation and visual effects. Our company was started by people who were really coming from a visual effects background, but all of us have done animation before. I was actually at ImageWorks when Sony Pictures Animation started, so I even worked on the Chub Chub short that we did. So for me, I was able to see how a visual effects studio can suddenly take on feature animation projects. So for instance, when we got ONI, we'd only done visual effects work before, and it was a chance for us to grow our pipeline, build an asset team, build an environment team, the things that I saw Sony having to do when they went through the same thing. And now we feel like we have a pipeline that can allow us to really take on anything. We're even doing like an installation for CES that involves like a 11K screen, and I think that being able to be very agile in our pipeline especially has really given us the chance to take on anything that comes our way. Film production works differently in Japan than it does in other parts of the world, so kind of in visual effects as well. So kind of learning how those differences affect the way that we work, and trying to work the way that we want to work but do it within the system here is takes some challenges. It's funny when people come to Japan, you hear about the challenges of figuring out how to get the card to ride the trains, how to figure out the system and everything like that. So obviously opening a company, opening a business, there's even more challenges that you have to figure out, and just learning what you have to do here. So we did find some people that understand the process, and we do have some good consultants that we work with. But in general, it's been challenging but fun. For ONI, it was Netflix US production, and they hired Tonka House, so Dice Tsumi and Robert Kondo's company in the Bay Area, and they were great to work with. So Dice was the director, and he had a team doing the concept art and storyboards, but from there onwards, the animation, just everything you see in the imagery we created here at Megalis. We did get some help from two animation studios, one called Anima, the other called Marza, here in Tokyo, to actually do the animation because we didn't have enough animators in the studio at the time. But yeah, other than that, all the effects, lighting, rendering, comp, we all did here at Megalis. Originally, ONI was supposed to be stop motion, and even the Wikipedia page until recently actually said it was stop motion. But in the end, just for budgetary reasons, scheduling reasons, they realized that they couldn't be stop motion. That's why it was full CG. But basically, it's ONI Naughty. So they built the rigs for the puppets, they built the environment. We were doing, so if you've seen it, you know that there's a lot of flying on clouds in the sky, especially in the first episode. So the first pilot that we did for them was indeed, ONI Naughty in a cloud. And with that, there was going to be some effects and some comp work needed, so that's why they turned to Megalis. So in Dice's mind, I think the movie was always going to be stop motion, or what ended up being a series. So I think it was really important to maintain that look when it ended up being full CG. So we did 12 frames per second. We did, there's a lot of static cameras, the kind of things that you would normally have in a stop motion project. And the thing for us was to really make the world feel like it was stop motion, and especially the characters. And we really wanted to preserve the materials that they used when they made these puppets. And I think our team really succeeded. And there's such a tactile quality to them, and sometimes I think you can almost reach into the screen and touch them. And I think that that's something that resonates, and I think is one reason people really enjoyed it. When we started ONI, Solaris was in its infancy. It had just been announced at SIGGRAPH like maybe a year or two before. But one thing that we're proud of here at Megalis is the fact that we are willing to kind of take chances, especially with software companies that we trust, like Side Effects. And we want to give our team the best tools to work with. So while we do some development here, we try to keep our pipeline agile enough, because I know, for instance, some companies that might want to switch to Solaris now are actually having to undo a lot of things in their pipeline in order to be able to introduce new technology. So while a lot of the software that we use is off the shelf. Our team is writing tools. We have a lot of HGA that our team is writing in order to make the software that we work with work even better for them. Definitely ONI was the biggest for sure, both in terms of how much content we delivered and just being, full CG animation. You're doing every pixel on the screen. It's funny because for those of you that didn't see it, right after ONI, we did a project called Zom 100 that involved a zombie shark. It's a Japanese zombie film, live action. It was over 900 shots. So basically the same team that did ONI immediately jumped on, with the same pipeline, jumped onto this zombie film. Yu Hakusho is a really popular manga in Japan from, I think, 1987 maybe. And so a lot of people in Japan grew up with this. And there was always a challenge because there's all these crazy fight scenes, and people thought, oh, this would be really hard to actually do in live action. So that's probably why it took so long for it to happen. The anime was really popular though. And so finally Netflix Japan decided to make a series in live action. So they were working with Scanline, but also needed other vendors from around the world. And they turned to Megalis for one sequence in particular that was going to be quite challenging. And it has a shot that we're actually giving a presentation about at SIGGRAPH. It involved like 9 different plates, having to stitch them together, having characters like go from live action to CG back to live action. And it was something that from the beginning we knew we'd almost have to treat it like its own show. So it had its own meetings just from week 1. And the team really pulled it off well. Actually, when we were approached by the VFX supervisor and producer at the very beginning, and they showed us this sequence and they asked us to bid it, they said, okay, we're going to give you this sequence, we'll award this sequence to you, but are you sure your team can do this shot? And I remember kind of just getting excited because I knew our team would be excited about this kind of thing. I mean, it's one thing that we live for is these shots that are going to be challenging, They basically said, we'll award you the sequence if you are sure you guys can pull this shot off. And well, I guess the rest is history. During the pandemic, I remember watching Alice in Borderland season 1, and I really, really liked it. I was like, oh, this is great. And I wanted to see who did the visual effects, because I thought if they do a season 2, I want Megalis to be involved. So we did get a chance to do one sequence in season 2, and we're actually doing a really big sequence now in season 3 that I'm looking forward to people seeing when season 3 comes out next year. We also did a project right now that we're wrapping up for LG for their booth at CES, and it's going to be an experience where the person enters a space and it tells the story of one of their new products, and it's been really fun. We're working with a director called Eric O, who was actually working for Tonka House on ONI, so he supervises storyboards on 2 of the episodes. So really great guy. He comes from Pixar background as well, so where Dice he was an animator on actually Inside Out 1, the film. When we walked into this office, we came out and there's a long corridor, and it's a big white wall. And we asked the guy, even before we went into the door, we were like, can we do anything we want here? And he was like, yeah, no problem. So immediately we got it in our head, we have to do a big mural here. So one of Chris's friends from back in France, actually, Alex Osmos, who works with us now, Chris reached out to him and he was like, hey, would you want to do a mural here? And so he came, we looked at it together, and then we thought, okay, what would it be? And we wanted to have a bit of a celebration of all the movies, the projects that inspired us as kids. So for me, I grew up watching Hitchcock movies. There's a little Hitchcock reference in there. There's Star Wars references. There's a lot of Pixar references. Obviously, a lot of us, that love animation grew up loving Pixar movies. And so we just started adding these, and then we reached out to the team. And I said, hey, just send us one image from a project that kind of inspired you to do what you do today. So our team started sending us things, contributing, not knowing what it was for. It was just a bit of a surprise. I was actually out of town the day that the team came in, so I wanted to just sit there and see everybody's faces when they came in and saw this. I think it's one of those things that maybe a year from now, there will be people that are kind of walking down the hall to the screening room and they're like, oh, I never noticed this one or that. So it's going to be fun for a while.